I'd like to call our meeting to order for June 10th, the Ways and Means Committee meeting. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro,
Present.
Alderwoman Howard,
Present.
Alderwoman Spencer, Alderwoman Boyd,
Present.
Alderman Muhammad, Alderman Oldenburg,
Present.
Alderwoman Navarro,
Present.
Alderwoman Middlebrook, Alderwoman Evans, Chairwoman Davis,
Present.
President Reed.
Here.
7 present, you have quorum.
Thank you very much. We need to approve our minutes from June 9th.
Oh, I'll make the motion. We approve the minutes from June 9th meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve and adopt our minutes from June 9th. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro,
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Spencer, Alderwoman Boyd,
Here.
Is it an aye or not?
I'm sorry.
Alderman Muhammad, Alderman Oldenburg,
Aye.
Alderwoman Navarro,
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook, Alderwoman Evans.
Aye. I'm sorry. Aye for Middlebrook.
Thank you. Alderwoman Evans, Chairwoman Davis,
Aye.
President Reed,
Aye.
Alderman Boyd, Alderwoman Howard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman Muhammad, and Alderwoman Davis.
Aye.
I'm sorry, that was Evans, Alderwoman Evans.
Yes, she didn't spoke.
8 aye votes.
So we have adopted our minutes from June 9th. The next process that we have to really address here is, as you know, we have had a review from all of the departments that you felt were necessary. We had asked that you forward amendments to the budget director. And if you haven't, we will have some discussions. But the first thing that we need to do today is I asked that our president come before us, because Board Bill 1 is officially the president's bill. And even though I have my name there as a co-sponsor, that's because of being the chair of Ways and Means. But we never, ever ignore the sponsor of a bill. And so, President Reed, we'd like to hear from you today, and we'd like to see where you are with this bill, and let's have a discussion, sir. So feel free to move forward.
Great, thanks. First, let me just thank each and every one of you so much for all the time that you put in to work through this budget. You know, having served on the Ways and Means Committee for many, many years as the Alderman of the 6th Ward, I enjoyed it, but also understood the amount of time commitment you have to make to it versus other committees. So you all have really, really done a good job of wading through this budget. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in a position that I've never experienced before, ever in all my years of service, where we have a bill that's before us that's apparently, in reality, an unbalanced budget. So when it passed the Board of E&A, we still had the reimbursements in it for federal detainees. But now, given the fact that that line item is virtually being wiped out of the budget by the administration, we no longer technically have a balanced budget in front of us. So what does that mean to the Board of Aldermen? I think it's really important that we understand what our options are from where we're sitting right now. You know, under the city's charter, section 5.14.07, Board of Aldermen, it outlines the Board of Aldermen's powers as it relates to the city's budget. And in it, it talks about the fact that the board has the power to reduce any item in the proposed appropriation ordinance, except for those for the payment of principal, payment of interest, the city's debt, or meeting any of the city's chartered responsibility ordinance or statutory obligations. But the thing that is a deal killer for us is the state law. If you take a close look at the state law, the Missouri Revised Statutes, Chapter 67, clearly outlines the fact that that no municipality within the boundaries of the state may adopt or vote on a budget that is unbalanced. So we have a requirement by Missouri state law to knowingly adopt a balanced budget, and that's not where we're at today. There's some additional things in Hancock, but that doesn't apply here. But Chapter 67, if you want to go to the specific section, 67.0.1.0 and paragraph 2, and it says, in no event shall the total proposed expenditures from any fund exceed the estimated revenues to be received plus any unencumbered balances. And it goes on to talk further about it, but we must vote on a balanced budget, and we have the powers to cut. So what does that mean to the board? We could essentially begin cutting things to make up the $5.7 million, somewhere in the neighborhood of $5.7 million, I think is the new estimate. But I don't think that that is the appropriate place for the board. I don't think that the board should be responsible for figuring out what to cut to make up those differences, right? I think that should come from the entities that made the decision to cut those budget line items. So in the normal course of action during working through the issues of the budget, at this point, the Board of Aldermen would do additions and deletions. You remember when I talked about the St. Louis City's Charter, section 5.14.70, it gives the powers to the board to reduce any item within the budget in an appropriations ordinance, except for those things I outlined earlier, payment of principal, statutory and ordinance requirements, things of that nature. All right. So once we get to this section in the budget, we would do additions and deletions. And the reason we do additions and deletions and send it back to the Board of E&A is because when it goes back to the Board of E&A, the Board of E&A has the power to accept those additions and also, acknowledge the cuts, right? But the important thing that the Board of E&A would do is say, okay, we accept these additions and these deletions, and we're going to send it back over to the board for to pass back through Ways and Means. Where we're at now, as the bill sponsor, I would recommend that we hold this bill in committee. What would happen, given we would hold this bill in committee, is that the bill that was originally sent over, right, would become law, but it would become law and it would not require the board to to vote on. The board then would introduce an additional appropriations bill, a supplemental appropriations bill with the cuts and any additions and deletions that the board is considering in this additions and deletions section that we're talking about here. You know, we have to have the bill passed out by June 30th. It goes in effect July 1. And what we would be looking for from the administration is acknowledgement and you know, some guidance on where they're going to make up this $5.7 million. Now, that does not take away the fact that the board would still have additions and deletions that they can put in any additional supplemental appropriations bill when we introduce whatever that new bill would be. But where we stand now, I'm not comfortable putting the board in a position to run counter to Missouri state law. I think that would be irresponsible. And again, we're in uncharted territories. I've never seen anything like this before, but it's the hand we've been dealt. With that, I'll answer any questions anyone may have. And I may be able to answer a lot of them, but hopefully the budget director is here. The budget director should be able to answer some also.
Yes, sir. I did not see Alderman Boyd come in yet. Alderman Vaccaro.
Yeah, I had no intention on voting on this, which I made clear before, that I'm not going to vote on a budget that overcrowds a prison and all that. But, you know, and also it's unbalanced. But why can't we just send it back to E&A and tell them, look, you sent us a bill. Why are we going to let this go in like it is when it should really go back to E&A, basically saying, look, you sent us an unbalanced bill. Send us a proper, appropriate bill before you send it back. Why do we have to let this go into law like it is?
Sending it back to E&A does not really expedite anything. Ultimately, again, what would have to happen is a cut, right? And the board, that the powers of cutting the budget is the Board of Aldermen. So we technically could do that. What we are doing is sending the correspondence back to room 200, saying to them, please identify $5.7 million from your departments, right? Because all of these departments would be under the mayor's office, from your departments that you would like us to cut. And that would be incorporated in anything that we're doing moving forward. But that correspondence would come from the mayor's office because those cuts would be within any of the mayor's departments, that $5.7 million. They need to tell us within their departments, where are they going to get $5.7 million to make up this difference?
And okay, I don't disagree, but so they don't send us anything back, they just blow it off. Then this budget goes into effect and
we still can introduce a supplemental program. We can still work through those things. It does not empower the board or expedite anything by sending it back, right? That does not advance the ball downfield from where we are today, right?
so board bill number 1 comes back to the board.
Excuse me.
Obviously, I'm not planning on voting yes on board bill number 1 in its present form. So let's just say it doesn't even get the votes at the in the full meeting when board bill number 1's brought up. Then
Yeah.
right, that goes into effect. I don't know. I you know, and if I'm the administration, I would say, you know, the Board of Aldermen had it, but why did you allow it to go in if you knew these things were?
No,
Somehow they have to fix this, and I don't know.
They,
I'm not comfortable.
yeah, they have to fix this. We're gonna send them a correspondence that says that, tell us where you would like to cut $5.7 million out of your departments, right? But sending the whole bill back to Board of E&A does not empower the board and does not position the board to really begin to ultimately transform this budget at all, right? So right now there's a $5.7 million hole in the budget. Again, this is unprecedented. But as the bill sponsor, I'm not comfortable sending it back to E&A, hoping for them to somehow do something better with it at this time. They need to do one thing and one thing only. They need to send us a list and say, $5.7 million. These are the departments that we're going to cut $5.7 million out of. And give us a list of those departments we're going to cut $5.7 million out of.
Okay, well, I just, well, anyway, I can tell you that my plan is that I will be a no vote on the floor.
Yeah, and the other thing is, just to flush it out more, is once that list comes over, it's still under the board's purview to say, okay, these are the items on that list that we're comfortable taking it out of. So they can send over a list of $8 million worth of things. They say, okay, pick from this $8 million worth of things or whatever, or they can send over 5.7 with additional, revenue streams or whatever. So, but again, that would still leave the board in a position to make the appropriate decisions moving forward.
I don't know, it seems, and maybe you'll have to educate me better later. So I'm the mayor's office, I send over a thing and I say, okay, we'll just cut $5.7 million out of the Board of Aldermen's budget. There you go. Now, that's your cut. You got people,
That
saying, "Hey, you don't need all this. And
that wouldn't be wise because, again, remember the Board of Aldermen has the power to cut it. Is there anything anybody can say about it? So
say, but after this passes on the floor,
I wouldn't spend a lot of, if I was the administration, I wouldn't spend a lot of time, at this point, really, getting the Board of Aldermen more and more stirred up about this.
but when it goes to the floor, and I'll quit asking.
It probably won't even, if we don't get those $5.7 million worth of cuts, it's not going to go to them. It's not going to go to the floor. The board cannot take it up. It's irresponsible. We can't take it up. We do not have the power under the laws of the state of Missouri to adopt an unbalanced budget. Knowingly. Yeah, so I'm not going to do it. You can. Anybody else can if they want to risk being thrown out of office. I will not be violating the state law.
Mr. President and Alderman Vaccaro, in the light of other opportunities for committee people to speak, I am cutting you off. I am also going to ask the question, do you need a response from the budget director at this point?
Are you asking me? No, I'm fine. I asked my last.
Okay, all right. But one of the things you have to remember, it can't get to the floor until it's passed out of committee. So that's the first step.
But
and the floor is the second step. So we won't worry about that part just yet, okay?
My understanding, if we don't pass a budget, it goes into effect the way it was presented. And that's just my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong.
As the president just shared with you, yes.
Right. So if we do nothing, we don't pass it out of committee, then it's automatically going to become the budget. And then the question I guess I was asking is, then did we do our due diligence? I'm just going to drop off and just listen because I'm on, just like the president, I am so uncomfortable with this budget. 12 years I've been sitting on this thing, and this is my 13th year, and I've never seen anything this, and it makes me wonder then who, so he said that when E&A sent it over, it was a balanced budget, but now it's not a balanced budget. So are we not doing, anyway, I guess because
You're trying to take on someone else's responsibility, sir. And that's not what we're here to talk about. What we're here to talk about is getting the sponsor's opinion on his bill, what he wants to do. He is explaining it to us, okay?
I'm going to mute myself. I'm just going to listen. So, but
All righty. Thank you. Alderwoman Howard.
Yes, I support your position, President Reed, on withdrawing and pushing this back. As you said, as you stated, Missouri law says we cannot pass an unbalanced budget. Now, let me just ask you this, if it would come back to us and they would find money to fill the deficit, then we would be charged with the addition subtraction issue, okay?
Yes.
That's
Yeah. We
one
can
scenario.
decide what to do with that list opposed to having it incorporated, right?
Okay.
We then incorporate that.
Okay, but what if,
It's in the hands of the board.
okay, what if they say they found money to fund that and they're not gonna make any cuts?
Well, we would have to have those funds verified and
Okay,
and validated by the budget director. And I guess the other question, the elephant in the room would be, where do these funds magically come from?
well, I guess what I'm getting at is, we have this federal money coming out there, but this is, a one-time thing. Could that be used? And I guess that's a question for Paul Payne. Could that money be used to make up the deficit in the budget?
I don't know. We have a separate appropriations bill for that, Board Bill number 2, for all those federal funds. So all those funds will be appropriated through Board Bill 2, and we will be operating on Board Bill 2 for all that stimulus money.
Okay, and then the second question I have, you mentioned that we would send this back to room 200, and then we would craft our own board bill.
No,
Was that, or did I misunderstand?
What we would do is, I'm going to send a correspondence, or the committee can send a correspondence to room 200, right? Asking that they please identify $5.7 million of cuts within their departments that would make up for the deficit that we're now faced with, right? And then let's assume that happens 2.5 weeks from now, right? Where the new budget would have gone into effect July 1, right? Let's say we're out of time, new budget goes into effect. We then would craft a supplemental appropriations bill that would have additions and deletions and everything else in it, right? And then the board would deliberate on that, and this committee would get that supplemental appropriations bill. Now, the way, if you read the charter, it says that any supplemental appropriation bills or appropriations bills must be not given, but must be authorized by the Board of E&A, right?
Okay.
That authorization can come at any time during that process, right? In the case of the budget, it's coming on the front end of the budget, but it can come when the board bill is introduced, right? As an appropriations bill, right? So then E&A would be able to weigh in on it. So E&A would still be part of that appropriations, but those items could be part of that. Now, let's say that they give us the information in the next 24 hours. We then could make the decision to move forward with the bill and incorporate all of those cuts within the bill. But then that is up to us. That's up to Ways and Means. That's up to the chairman and the members, right? What we do from there, given the information we need to move forward. But what we're saying right now is that given the current state of things, we can no longer move forward with this budget as it sits.
I think that's all I have. Thank you very much. I think that's clarified, and I do support your move to take this and take it off the agenda and move it back to the Route 200. Okay, thank you. That's all.
You're welcome. Alderwoman Spencer. She's not. Alderwoman Boyd.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, for attending. I guess I'm not confused, but I'm kind of strained because what I'm hearing you say is we can't pass the budget as it sits now because of the deficit. You will have to send it back to the administration to have them find those dollars that's missing. And so do you think that would, and it looks like it's going to delay us being on time for July 1 for the budget to be enforced? Am I on point thinking that?
Yes, you are, except for we can add additional meetings as needed if we saw it fit to do that, right? Let's say we end up getting everything that we need, and this committee and others are like, yeah, let's get this done. Let's incorporate these changes and our additions and deletions, and let's move forward with this budget. We can make that decision then, and then the board could have additional sessions to meet all of our statutory guidelines for adopting new ordinances, right? To meet that July 1 time frame.
Okay, thank you.
Right, thanks.
Thank you. Alderman Oldenburg.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Mr. President or Madam Chair, maybe these are this is a question for you, but has there been any communication from the mayor's office? I mean, clearly they know that this is a problem. I'm just curious if there's been any communication to the chairwoman of the Ways and Means or the president of the board, who's also a member of E&A, as to how they might solution to this problem.
I haven't heard yet, the chairwoman.
Okay, I had a brief conversation about there's a possibility of some suggestions, but aside from that, the conversations need to be with the bill sponsor.
Sure.
I'm the committee chair. It needs to
Understood.
be with the bill sponsor.
And so far, I have not had any information come to me as how we're going to plug this big hole in the budget. And with the way it happened, it's just, like I said, we are in uncharted territory. I've never had a budget that has changed so dramatically from the time that was adopted through E&A.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, it's how it's being spun. Would be very interesting to hear a statement officially made about it, because it's certainly a problem and, quite frankly, reckless, in my opinion. You know, and typically in past administrations, we've had a representative almost attend every hearing session. No one from the mayor's office, to my knowledge, has been on, is on today or has been in any of these past meetings. Now, maybe they're watching, but I mean, it would be helpful to have somebody here to maybe provide the members of the Ways and Means Committee some clarity. But I think the steps you outlined, Mr. President, are prudent, and I concur with that assessment. So I have nothing further. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Navarro.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you, President Reed. And I'm glad that we have time for this discussion today, and hopeful that there are some conversations happening with the mayor's office, because I'm sure somebody must have, when we eliminated that revenue stream, there must have been some discussion about where that was going to be made up, I would hope. And one general question I have, and this is my first time on Ways and Means, so I apologize if this has been gone over before. It came up in some of our earlier hearings that, we do have another revenue stream through the parking meters and the parking garages, and that money does not go into the general fund. It does not go to paved streets or, help cover any of that infrastructure. But I do know in the past that we have received an allocation from the Treasurer's fund to help fill gaps. Is that a conversation? Do you know, is that happening, or what's the mechanism for that sort of funding to occur? And is that on the table?
Alderwoman, I thank you for pointing that out, because that has been done in the past. There hasn't, to my knowledge, again, there hasn't been any of those discussions, at least to my knowledge. I have not been involved in any, and no one has raised that as a possibility to me at all whatsoever. But thank you for pointing that one out.
So that would essentially need to be initiated by the mayor's office, and I guess in the parking commission. Is that how you would see that happening?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It would have to, it would technically begin with the parking commission. The mayor's office, being part of the parking commission, could make the recommendation to the parking commission, and then they would have to convene a meeting and move through the parking commission.
Okay, well, thank you. And I'm hopeful that some out of the box creative thinking will take place so that we can move forward, because I know none of us want to see any cuts made to this already very, very lean budget. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
I have no more questions.
Thank you. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you, President Reed, for being here. I appreciate your thorough explanation and your stance on this bill, and I support this move. So thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Alderwoman Evans. She keeps going in now. No, she's not there now. So we're at the end of the committee comments, and I'll give my brief comment, Mr. President. There is a lot of concern on my part, okay? And I am just going to remind myself and remind the committee that this is your bill, okay? And before the media or anybody else gets involved with a lot of nonsense, board bill number 1 is the president's board bill. Always is, and it comes to the Ways and Means Committee. I am the committee chair, which means I sit here, I actually conduct a committee hearing. I also follow the lead of those who are actually a part of the decision-making of the budget, which means, and he has been so, what I call diligent, is the budget director, Paul Payne, who has always been here to ask questions and has always been extremely responsible in preparing our budgets for us based on what he has received from the various departments. It's unfortunate that we discovered this in the middle of one of our hearings. And at that point, we identified that the appropriate questions had not been asked in order to understand where funds are received and how they were being spent. So we could have really avoided some of this. But that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to clarify, this is your board bill. We will take your lead of advice because we don't have any other choice. That's the first thing people need to understand because it is your board bill. And then secondly, Mr. President, at this point, could you please share and or ask Paul Payne where he is in this budget process right now?
Paul, Paul, are you with us?
Yes.
You want to give just a brief update on current status, where you are on the budget process now?
Sure. And a lot of this is just reiterating what I said at the previous. Obviously, this is something that's been obviously unusual that we haven't been through before, but I would hope that the ideal situation would be that there was a solution that is a series of amendments that could be approved within Board Bill 1 before the end of the fiscal year and by July 1, that we could incorporate, that everyone could get together on and address this this issue with the lost revenue. And I would hope that ENA could get together and do that. I still, that's my recommendation to the board, both to this board and to the Board of ENA, that we get that resolved prior to the adoption of the budget. And primarily just because the budget each year is again, it's all estimates and we estimate what these things are, but there's a fiscal discipline about the budget process and what we're trying to show, that you have got a responsible approach to how you're going to manage your finances in a given year. And so you accept what those are at the beginning of the fiscal year. You say you've got a plan, and then as things change during the fiscal year, particularly last year where there was such a big change with COVID and all that, you didn't know where these things were going, and so you adopt as you go along. But the whole premise is that you're adopting a fiscally responsible plan to begin with, and then you adopt, and then you change, or you adopt the changes as conditions warrant. So again, I think the recommendation I would make is that we get together and have an amendments or a series of amendments that could address this issue before the final adoption of Board Bill 1 that both ENA and this committee could agree to.
I thank you for that. And the only thing I'm going to add is how critical it is that you work with your department heads, because they are the day-to-day with the budget. And they can always help you when you're trying to make decisions. They can't tell you what to do. And I don't think any of them would try, but at least they can give you the accurate information that you can use in order to formulate decisions. But I want to thank you very much for that. I want to go back to the president. Oh, no, not just yet. I need to ask you, Paul, did you have any amendments that have been sent to you yet?
I had received a couple of them that I had given back to the older people who had requested them, but I haven't heard since.
Okay, well, we're in a safe position thus far because we really shouldn't even deal with any of those at this point until we see where we are.
Yeah.
So I would just suggest that you continue to work with them, and if we can do something as far as some adjustments, we would. But right now we're at a standstill. So I thank you so much. Mr. President.
Yes, Madam Chair.
So we've heard from our committee members, and I want to make sure before I give you an opportunity to close out, are there any additional questions that any committee members have, and or any other comments from any of our committee members? And just go right ahead.
I just would like to say thank you, Madam Chair, for getting through this expeditiously and allowing us the time to try to find the deficit, and hopefully we can come to reconcile the budget and move the city forward in a positive direction. And thank you, President Reed, for being willing to do this. So, and withdraw the bill or not withdraw it, but take it over and see if we'll reconsider it. So I hope that we can come to some conclusions. And again, thank you, Madam Chair, for doing this in an expeditious manner. This leaves us them 20 days to come up with a solution for the deficit. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And I did write down, I saw Alderwoman Ingracia and Alderman Gunther. Please open your mic if you have something you need to say or questions to ask, please.
I have no questions.
Thank you.
Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, go right ahead, sir.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. President, for being here. From listening through this, I feel like I might be as confused as some of the other members are. And I guess, I don't know if this is a question for Mr. President or for Paul Payne, but seeing as that we do have 20 days left, what is the process for taking a bill and saying, instead of just sitting on it for 20 days, to send it back to E&A and to allow them to present us with the $5.7 million in cuts and then bring it back so that we would be able to have an opportunity to add our additions or subtractions to a final bill. What is the process for that?
Well, the bill does not have to be sent back to E&A for cuts to happen. Cuts happen here at the Board of Aldermen. If there are additions, then included in that package, we can choose to handle those with the Board of Aldermen's additions and deletions, right? But cuts happen at the Board of Aldermen. Does not expedite things by sending the bill back to the Board of E&A so that the Board of E&A has to schedule a meeting, which 3 weeks from now. And then they would have to send it back to Ways and Means. We do not have time for that. So we are in a situation where we're $5.7 million short. So we're requesting a list of cuts adding up to that $5.7 million that we can incorporate in the current bill. So that's where we're at with it. And as a bill sponsor, and President, I've looked at this timeline 7 ways from Sunday, and this is the fastest, quickest, most expeditious way to do this and get it done. There's nothing that the Board of E&A can do right now. This is in the hands of the Board of Aldermen. It's a cut, and that's our chartered authority and responsibility.
Okay, so I understand that, our ability to cut, and essentially instead of us taking the $5.7 million and cutting that, instead you're sending a letter to Room 200 and asking them to send us the list of the cuts that then will be incorporated as a floor or a committee substitute onto Board Bill 1.
It would just be amendments that.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and I guess you said that your time you never dealt with this, so I'm saying in my 4 years, I feel like we dealt with this last year during COVID when we had a budget that we didn't vote on, and then we just put into place the budget that came out of Room 200 without any cuts or subtractions from the board. So looking at this now with having 20 days left to be able to come up with a fiscally sound budget like the Budget Director Payne suggested, I didn't know what the process was to go back to E&A and say we need a bill that identifies these cuts so that we can actually take our job seriously here of being able to approve a final budget. So that's what I was kind of looking for clarity on. Yeah, I'm not sure how we get there unless the mayor comes out and says, here's $5.7 million. Here's how we're going to balance the budget. Go ahead and vote on it by June 30th. So I didn't know if there was another step to say, hey, we're returning this, or if we just sit. So
we've done, well, first thing is, this is nothing like last year. This is unprecedented. unprecedented, where we received the budget and a revenue stream has been eliminated from the budget before Ways and Means has taken it up. Never, ever has this happened. I've been here since 1999. I've never seen it, right? I can guarantee that. And you just heard the budget director say that this is unprecedented. He hasn't seen this, right? This is something unusual that never happens. So we are in uncharted territory. And our powers that are vested in the Board of Aldermen is the powers cut. So we could technically just start deciding what we're going to cut. We could start, you know, we can eliminate department heads and everything else. That's our power. We have the ability to do that now. But we're not. We're saying to what I think would be the best approach is say back to the administration, there's a $5.7 million hole in the budget. Please send us the corresponding cuts to make this up. And the timeline is up to the administration. If they take 20 days to do it, they take 20 days to do it. If they take a week to do it, they take a week to do it, right? It is not, that is not an indictment on the board, because the board has done its job, right? And hopefully you understand that. Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you.
May I add a comment to that, please?
Yep.
I would never, ever even dream of trying to make decisions on cutting to balance this budget, because I don't know all the priorities that have been put in place from the mayor's office, nor do we have what I consider to be the day-to-day interaction with the department heads like the mayor's office. So that's the best place for those decisions to be made. I don't think we should try to do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Again, I am just so thankful for all the work that you all have done to this point. Looking forward to us somehow working through this and ending up with a budget that everybody will be happy with at the end of the day. I think this is the best and most prudent course of action for the board, and I just so thoroughly and am so appreciative of your indulgence and support in moving forward in this direction. So thank you so much, and thank you. And as Alderman from the 14th said, thank you so much, Madam Chair. I like the way you run your committee. Steve Conway didn't run the committee like that when I was on it back in the day. You remember that?
Thank you. I know sometimes people don't like my strictness, but I think it's important so that everybody is treated fair, the public has clear understanding, and we do meet all the rules and guidelines for the committee. And I'm about to hand you one now, sir.
No, but hold on a second. For people who think that Alderman from the 19th is strict, go back and review some of those recordings under Steve Conway. He was he moved the budget.
We went toe to toe a lot. Yes, we did.
Thank you all. I appreciate you. I'm running to
Mr. President, I want to request that the correspondence that you are going to send to the mayor's office is shared with this committee.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you all. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you very much. I want to finish our agenda items here. Is there any other discussion that needs to take place? Hearing none. Are there any announcements that need to take place? I am going to schedule a regular Ways and Means Committee meeting for next Wednesday, just in case we're ready for some additional action to move forward. Anybody else?
I have a question. So you're going to stay with the schedule, and so we're at the ready in case we get, if we get something back. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Sounds good.
Okay. And so we had 3 aldermen to be excused. Am I right? Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman Collins Muhammad, and Alderwoman Evans.
I'm sorry, Did Alderman Boyd pop in? I didn't see him.
Oh, no, he didn't. You're right, Alderman Boyd. So we shall excuse those aldermen for today.
Noted.
All right. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned, and I thank you all for your time.